All right. So, Lyndsie, one of the things about the Bible I find challenging to how I reflexively see the world is the idea that the earth has a parallel reality called heaven that is God's space, and that there's interaction between those two realms. And we get this from the book of Genesis onward, where there's rebellion on earth, but also rebellion in the heavens. And one of the and there's these like parallel tracks. Once you know how to look for it, it's often there. And then there's boundary crossings between the world of heaven and earth. That framework is central to how John in the book of Revelation is inviting us to see all of reality. And one of the classic points of connection between these two realms is the temple. And the idea isn't just that the Jerusalem temple is itself the connection point between heaven and earth. That's part of it. A deepening of that idea is that there's actually a parallel temple in heaven. There's a temple on earth, and it's a replica, it's an echo of a greater and more real temple in heaven. And in today's passage, we're in Revelation chapter 15. We're walking through at a granular level, verse by verse, through the symbolism, and John is putting layer upon layer and the 7 trumpets and 7 seals, and today we're going to enter the 7 bowls of wrath and all this stuff. But he's giving us a picture of the world where there is more to reality than what we can see, and that what goes on in the heavenlies impacts the world. What goes on in the world impacts the heavenlies. There's this mirroring effect. And we're going to see that in today's passage. So that's where we're going to be driving to. But like most things in the Bible, the interesting little bit gets even more interesting when you see the context around it. So it's going to take us a minute to get to the heavenly temple. Yeah. But there's some context around it that's going to help us see what all that means. So,
great.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
You ready for that?
I'm very.
Okay, so we're in Revelation chapter 15. It says this, starts out, then I saw, this is John's way of switching scenes. Then I saw this, then I saw this. He's a visionary. Then I saw another sign. So again, these are symbols that point, like a stop sign.
Right.
Or think about a sign out here on the highway that says San Francisco, 20 miles that way. Yeah. The point of the sign is that it's telling us something about a reality beyond the sign. If you fixate on the sign itself, you're actually not using it properly, yes? So what is that? There's another sign. What's it pointing to? A great, amazing sight in heaven. 7 angels. John loves sevens, numbers of perfection. 7 angels who were bringing the 7 last plagues. Exodus language that we've seen all throughout. Right. And in fact, the Exodus storyline is going to be key here in chapter 15, as we're going to see. Right. Okay. With them, God's anger is completed. There's a telos, there's a finality. And in fact, chapter 15 here of Revelation has what's called an inclusio, an enveloping structure, where at the very end of the chapter, that word telos, complete, comes up again. Comes up in the first verse, comes up in the last verse. So, we're 15 chapters in now. We are getting close to the ultimate climax of these visionary sequences. Okay. And I saw what looked like a sea of glass mixed with fire. This is a very interesting image.
Yeah. How do you see it?
A sea of glass. All sorts of random associations come into my head. Yeah. Like my mom loved to water ski growing up. And when she was, the water's like glass. Yes. Now I need to go water skiing. Yeah. Yeah. So that comes to my mind.
It's almost like a skating rink, but like,
yeah.
But, or frozen, like a frozen lake or something. Yeah. But there's this big ball of fire. Right. Underneath it that you can see. Right. But it's not affecting the surface. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. Now, what's interesting is later in the book, in chapter 20, we will encounter a lake of fire.
That's interesting.
And it's the second time. So you have a sea of glass that is mixed with fire. Right. And then a lake of fire. It's interesting to think about those alongside each other.
It's almost like a different way of saying the same thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I would see it. Here's where my mind goes. As we're about to see, the idea of a sea or an ocean here parallels the idea of the Red Sea in the book of Exodus, the Israelites standing on the far shore and saying, oh my gosh, God just saved us.
Yeah.
He just destroyed Pharaoh. So there's that real hyperlink to the Old Testament. But where my mind goes is this idea of the contrast between a lake is relatively small.
Sure.
And a sea,
vast.
Which goes out to the horizon is vast. And for me, it makes me think of the contrast between God's goodness and beauty and order and purposes and the lake-sized evil and, anti-God impulses that are very real. And yet when compared to the sea of God, they're just kind of puny. But anyways, there's these two bodies of water or frozen fire, whatever it is.
Fire water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Fire water. It sounds like a whiskey.
It's
totally give me some of that fire water.
That's funny.
Okay. There, by that glassy sea on which my mom water skis, stood the people who had won the victory over the monster and over its image and over the number of its name. How had they won the victory? Well, it talks about how they won the victory through the word of their testimony and also following the Lamb on the way of martyrdom. They win by their own blood, which is super counterintuitive because usually when you get killed, you've lost.
Sure.
But turns out when you've killed, you've won.
Right.
Somehow in this universe. And everybody in this universe, they're all musicians. They were holding harps of God and they were singing, and this is really key, super dense hyperlinks here, singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. So let's follow those hyperlinks. The song of Moses. So Moses wore many hats, amongst which he's a poet, he's a songwriter. Psalm 90 is attributed to Moses. And there's two really important places in the Torah where Moses breaks out in song. They're both very important. One is Exodus chapter 15.
Okay.
Which is right after this sequence of 10 plagues and the jailbreak from Egypt. And then Pharaoh changes his mind and he's going to chase them. And the Israelites are trapped against the sea and they got water on the one side and the army coming on the other. And then God comes with the pillar of cloud and fire and creates a barrier. And God says to Moses, why are you standing there? Part the sea. And he's like, is that an option? And he's like, yes, put your staff out over the sea. And, they walk through and they go through and then Pharaoh's army gives chase. And then, but then all the waves come crashing down and it obliterates Pharaoh's army. And right then is, we get to Exodus chapter 15. This is called the Song of Moses or the Song of the Sea. It says this, then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying, I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God. I will exalt him. It's an 18 verse. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Okay.
Then Miriam, his sister, gets a tambourine in her hand and also sings, leads the women in a song.
Yep.
Really profound. Couple little details here that I think are telling. In Hebrew, well, what I just read in English is in the simple past tense. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song. In Hebrew, it says, Az Yashir Moshe, which most straightforward translation is, then Moses will sing this song. It's an imperfect, it's a future tense, although Hebrew grammarians, you will know that sometimes when an imperfect follows a perfect, the subsequent one can still take the force of the perfect, but there is no prior perfect. What a jumble to say.
Holy, what did you just say?
What a jumble to say. Who cares? Why? The reason I'm mentioning this is because some ancient rabbis read that the beginning of Exodus 15, Az Yashir Moshe, which fairly on the surface seems to say, then Moses will sing. They took that to say, oh, this is pointing to the age to come.
Okay.
That Moses and the people of God will sing this on the far side of the Messianic age when God has redeemed his people in a new Exodus sort of event.
I see.
And so they're taking, this is really key. This is why paying attention to grammar matters. They're pointing to this little tweak in the word that radically upshifts the meaning of this whole event into the age to come.
Got it.
Now, what's also interesting in Exodus chapter 15 is if you look at the end of chapter 14, two things that are important. Here's 14, verse 31. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed. In Hebrew, they amened. Mm-hmm. They believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Mm-hmm. So faith is a huge belief. Faith is a big driving theme in the book of Exodus. There's 4 other places, I think, in the book of Exodus where it says, and they believed, or they did not believe. And not just in the Lord, but in the Lord's servant, Moses. Mm-hmm. Also, verse 30, thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Why that matters, Lyndsie, is that in the Bible, salvation and judgment are like 2 sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. And those things go together. And we might find that a little bit, we might want to separate those and say, well, can't you just save the Israelites without punishing the Egyptians? Mm-hmm. But in God's world, and I think if we've ever been on the receiving end of a grave injustice, something feels incomplete unless there is accountability for that justice.
Sure.
And unless there is appropriate, proportional punishment and consequence for that injustice. Right. And so this idea, so we're getting several important things here from the book of Exodus, which is the eschatological, future-oriented Moses song, and also the importance of belief in the story of the people of Israel, and the close coupling of salvation and justice. Those things go together.
Got it.
So, and when any New Testament writer is either implicitly or here explicitly saying, by the way, this recalls the Song of Moses, it always pays off to go back and read a few verses on either side, because it will so enrich your understanding of what that New Testament author is pointing you to.
Yes.
Now, Moses didn't just have that song in Exodus 15. There's another song of Moses, equally famous, which is in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Okay. This is on Moses' deathbed. God tells him bluntly in chapter 31, hey, Moses, when you die, everyone's going to go crazy and rebel against me and everything you've taught them. And God's like, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And God says, I want you to teach the people of Israel this song. I'm going to teach you a song. I want you to teach it to everybody, and it will be a witness against them on that day when I have to punish them for their rebellion. Mm-hmm. And so there's this big long song. It's really important in how in the Bible's architecture of history, Deuteronomy 32 is extremely important. But one facet of that is where the song ends in verses 36, and I think it's like 42. It says, and God will vindicate the blood of his servants. There's this little remnant of holdouts, very, very faithful people. And in fact, it says he will vindicate them when their strength is gone. They've given everything. They're flatlined. And God will show up and vindicate them. And so I think that also is very relevant for these martyrs who are standing on the seashore.
Yeah.
And God is vindicating them. And the other thing is, it says, and it's not just the Song of Moses, the Psalm of the Lamb. Now, man, there's some really interesting stuff here. First of all, in the Torah, Deuteronomy 18 says very clearly, Moses speaking, God is going to send you another prophet like me. You really better listen to him. But then at the very end, Deuteronomy 34, it says, and there has never arisen in Israel to this day a prophet like Moses. So there's this tension. Mm-hmm. There will be a new Moses. The new Moses has never come. Now, Israel lived with that tension. A lot of the prophets who showed up did Moses-style things. Elijah, Elisha. But then we get to the day of Isaiah, and Isaiah, who by the way, Isaiah chapter 1 starts out by quoting Deuteronomy 32.
Okay.
But the thing about Isaiah is that Isaiah writes these what are called servant songs in the second half of the book. There are these portraits, kind of like flashing portraits that can be sort of coordinated of this servant figure who will suffer and yet bring God's salvation to all of his people. And so that seems to be the Old Testament soil out of which this idea of a lion lamb conquering figure, who is Jesus.
Okay.
I'm trying to help us see how this web all works, because I think this web is very active for someone like John.
Right. So we can point Moses' song back to Deuteronomy and Exodus. Can we point the Lamb song back to Isaiah then?
Yes.
Okay.
Boy, I wish I'd have just said it that clearly at the beginning, because that's exactly what I was trying to say.
I was like, I'm following.
You're a very good listener. You're like a therapist. What I hear you saying is, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
You're a good teacher. See, I picked it up. There you go.
I could have maybe said that more clearly.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so let's read what they're going to sing. Here's the song. Great and amazing are your works, O Lord God, the Almighty One. Just and true are your ways, O King of the nations. Who will not fear you, Lord, and glorify your name? Now, this is language that showed up in the prior chapter, Revelation 14, verse 7, where this angel goes to all the nations and says, fear the Lord, glorify his name. That appears right here. So
this chunk right now, it's not calling back to Isaiah, it's calling back to a previous chapter in Revelation, or is it just similar tone?
So it can be doing multiple things at once.
Okay.
So actually the answer is yes, all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah. When we think about the literature of Revelation, we need to know that it is coordinated at two levels. One, internally with itself, but it is also coordinated externally with the great tradition of Israel's scriptures.
Right.
And multiple patterns can be active at any one time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. For you alone are holy. Remember back to chapter 4, where there's a one-word song in heaven, just holy, 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 right? For all nations shall come and worship before you, because your judgments have been revealed. And Destiny and I talked a lot about this last time, why is it that God's judgment actually is good news that causes us to worship, that brings people to say, wow, we're so grateful that you're here judging? Because usually that has a negative connotation, like, don't you judge, don't be judgy.
Well, is it calling back to the blood of the martyrs being spilled and God's judgment? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's on the right track.
Where he's taking action. Okay.
Yep. Now, what in the Exodus story, you get the people to the shore of the sea, they sing this song, then what do? They turn inland and they head towards Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, they meet God. And one of the main things God does, this dominates the second half of the book of Exodus, I want you to build a tabernacle, and it's going to be a place where my presence is going to dwell among you. And God gives detailed architectural instructions. Right in the middle of that, the golden calf affair happens, which is a shenanigan. And then the second half, and then after the golden calf affair, we get like those architectural directions again, although now they're being implemented. And this ultimately is driving big times towards a theology of the dwelling place of God and God dwelling with his people. But so what I want us to see is that sequence of events: crossing the sea, sing a song, then get a tabernacle.
Okay.
Just so here in Revelation 15, we crossed the sea, we sang a song. Then verse 5, after this I looked, new scene, and the temple of the tabernacle of witness was opened in heaven. Do you see how it would make sense that right after a song at the sea, a tabernacle comes into play?
Yes.
Because that's the script of the ancient Israelites, yes?
Right.
And I said this at the beginning, in the ancient world, there was a longstanding tradition how the earthly temple in Jerusalem sort of echoed the heavenly temple. We read about this in the book of Hebrews, where it talks about the heavenly temple. The ancient philosopher Philo, Jewish thinker, contemporary with Jesus and Paul, actually lived in the first century. He was very influenced by the Greek philosopher Plato, and Plato thought of the heavenly realms as a sort of the real place, and everything down here is kind of a shadow or a sort of a kind of a knockoff replica of the real thing up there.
Yeah.
And this Jewish thinker Philo took that to say, yes, the earthly temple is just a shadowy downgrade, so to speak, of the real temple in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
But here we get this temple, it's open in heaven.
Okay.
The 7 angels who had the 7 plagues came out of the temple, clothed in clean, shining linen, it's like priestly attire, wearing golden belts across their chests. Then one of the 4 living creatures gave the 7 angels 7 golden bowls. You know, it's kind of like temple tools, bowls for incense and stuff. 7 golden bowls filled with the anger of the God who lives forever and ever. And last time, we Destiny and I really went deep on this idea of God's anger, God's justice. So if that's of interest, you probably should check that out. I think that might help contextualize that.
Okay.
It says, the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and his power. Nobody was able to go into the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels had been completed. Now, I want to, a couple aspects here have serious Old Testament background.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of smoke being in the temple, that is a trope that we get over and over again at the end of the book of Exodus, chapter 40. The tabernacle's been completed, and the sign that God says, I like it, and I'm going to dwell there, is smoke. Remember, like the pillar of smoke as well?
Yeah,
it's like this is God's presence. Then in 1 Kings chapter 8, fast forward a couple hundred years, when Solomon is dedicating the real temple in Jerusalem, fills up with smoke. Then, fast forward a few hundred more years, after the people have rebelled against God and exile's happening, the prophet Ezekiel sees the smoke leave the temple as if to say, well, God's gone. And so this whole idea of we're in the smoke. Now, this is not the evangelical smoke machine.
Haze.
It's not the haze.
Yeah.
But I think it actually, that always makes me think of the heavenly temples.
Yeah.
Something that's interesting, because of that intense smoke, God's intense presence, in Exodus chapter 40, Moses can't go in. Nobody can go in. They're unable to enter. So then, you turn the page, you get the book of Leviticus, and for the first 9 chapters of Leviticus, you get all this sort of purification rituals. How do you live with this holy God? And then finally, by Leviticus chapter 9, Moses and Aaron are able to enter the temple. And then the next book of the Torah, Numbers, begins, and God spoke to them in the tent of meeting.
Okay.
And so those little details help us track the overall narrative of the Torah, which at one level is, how do humans live with a holy God? We are rebels. We really screw up in many ways. How can we cohabit with a holy God? And Leviticus is like helping us think through how to do that. But I think, so what I get out of that, Lyndsie, and I'd be curious for what you get out of that, when it talks about nobody's able to go into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels have been completed, it's the same logic as the book of Leviticus, where there has to be a cleansing, a purifying, a moral rectitude in order for creatures to be in the presence of God.
Right.
And so it's not ultimately punitive. It's actually merciful to say, let me help create the conditions for you to dwell with me.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yes. So, I mean, just from a very human standpoint, if we were to walk into a room filled with smoke, like we can't
pull the fire alarm. Leave.
You can't breathe.
Yeah.
And so there has to be something that purifies that space to where we can inhabit it. And in a sense, that's kind of what Jesus has done, where he has been that sacrifice, and he's able to purify that, be that in between, so that we can be in the presence, almost like a gas mask. In a sense, where if we walked in to God's presence, we'd be consumed, but Jesus has been that like buffer to where it allows us to be in the holiness, because he's given us that. Am I tracking at all?
Yeah.
Like kind of
absolutely.
like this, like he is the one that is spiritual gas mask to where we can be in both.
Yes.
So I don't know. That's like my visual that I have in my head. So yes, all of these things, like you're saying at the end here, have to happen, but we cannot do that in and of ourselves. We can't
Right.
do that whole purification consistently,
Yeah.
in and of ourselves. And so there had to be Jesus in order for us to
Yeah.
be in this dwelling place with God.
Yes. It reminds me too of
Yeah.
like these mountaineers on Mount Everest, and you get up at a certain level and there's just no oxygen.
Yes.
And I think, could be wrong, but I think they often wear oxygen masks,
Really?
where it's like, and to transpose it physically or spiritually, like the idea of like going so high up into the presence of God, we're not built on our own to stand that.
Yeah.
So in many ways, what Jesus provides for us is the mask
Yeah.
to rich oxygen.
I was really trying to find a different metaphor than this like gas mask, but that's all I could think in my brain. It was like, yeah, this Jesus gives us the ability to breathe, our spiritual gas mask.
But it's almost like inverse. Like imagine, okay, so smoke is a toxin in the air.
Yes.
I mean, if fire is it's a toxin in the air. And when we're in the absence of smoke, we're in pure air. But it's almost like the opposite, where
Sure.
what we call pure air
Yes.
is actually filled with toxins of lies and this and that. Whereas the presence of God is that purity, is that we're currently unable to reside in, and yet we are also made for.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
Okay.
I'm
good.
tracking.
I don't know if anybody else is tracking.
I can't translate, but I am tracking mentally with what you're saying.
I love talking with you because I get to exercise a part of my brain that I often don't, which is like the images.
Yeah, totally. Well, and same. I think in images, and you're speaking words, and I'm like, okay, pay attention.
Yeah. No, I mean, the brain thinks in images.
Yes.
Before words.
Yeah.
Images are primary.
Yeah. I have a question, a
Sure.
callback. So you were saying, let's see, there was water, there was a song.
Yeah.
And what was the third thing?
Then
then temple.
That's right. Yep.
So we see patterns of that a lot, right? In the Old Testament. Is Noah that? Would you say the water? Did Noah sing a song after?
Noah there's like blessings that are, it's like Eden 2.0.
Yeah.
Where there's, language. So it's sort of poetic.
Yeah.
I don't think he breaks out into a song.
I don't think so either. Okay. What are some other examples of the crossing of water, the song, and then temple?
Well, I think a really classic one in the New Testament is Jesus being baptized.
Mm-hmm.
He goes through the water. He's being baptized in the Jordan River, which is where the Israelites crossed into the Promised Land. Then there's this epiphany moment where the Spirit of God dwells on him in the form of a dove. A voice from heaven says, "You are my beloved Son. With you I'm well pleased." Then, just like the Israelites leaving the Red Sea, he's immediately cast down into the wilderness for a period of testing. And in that testing, just like the Israelites, interestingly, the tempter comes and takes him to the temple and sets him on the highest point of the temple and encourages him to do a sort of a extravagant, self-glorifying, I'm going to throw myself down and God's going to, it's a very interesting exegetical dueling there because Satan's quoting the Bible to Jesus. But that is an example. So there's not as strong of a temple component.
Okay.
Jesus is the temple at a very deep level.
Yeah.
But that's another classic example of how the storyline of the ancient Israelites is in the background of Jesus's own story, and it gives meaning and depth to Jesus's story. So similar, in the Gospel of Matthew, after Jesus' testing, very shortly thereafter, he goes up on a mountain to give his Torah. This is the Sermon on the Mount. That's doing a very Moses-style thing. So this is running the script that says to what we were saying some minutes ago, Deuteronomy 18. God's going to send a new prophet from among the brothers. You got to listen to him. And this is Jesus doing new Moses things that fulfill all this. So this is why Jesus says in the Gospel of John, if you read Moses and you don't believe what he said, how are you ever going to believe in me? Because he wrote about me.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is making a very strong exegetical claim to say Moses' Torah is pointing fundamentally forward to this day. And you don't have to take that with like squinted eyes. Actually, that is a robustly accurate description of how this literature works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. You guys, you talked about, sorry, I have a question. You talked about the 7 golden bowls filled with the anger of God. Can you summarize a little bit what you guys talked about last time?
Yeah.
That would help bring this to life?
Yeah. So, in chapter 16 and following, we're going to get the 7 bowls of God's wrath, the bowls of wrath. And I think that my favorite description of God's wrath and judgment in the Bible is in Revelation 11. I think it's verse 8, where it says, "It is time to destroy the destroyers of the earth."
Okay.
So there are people who have used their God-given will and created agency to harm and to destroy and to pollute and to deface and to be forces of anti-creation. And God's wrath is against that. And God says, I'm going to destroy the destroyers of the earth.
Yeah.
And so God's anger is not, it's not, drunk dad with a baseball bat kind of anger.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, God's emotional default is just he's pissed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is not true at all.
Yeah.
His anger is actually a facet of his love, and it is a love that is committed to the good of what he has made and what he wants to protect, and a determination to remove all that would threaten the beloved. That's the spirit here.
Yeah.
Does that help?
That super helps. The destroy the destroyers. Like that's
exactly.
That
I want to
like
tattoo that.
I know. Just destroy the
That's like super epic.
It's a great superhero tag.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to read that just so I can.
Can I jump on that?
Yeah,
so there's
please.
this statement in the song
Okay.
where it says, "Just and true are your ways."
Yes.
Because with all this language of wrath and destruction and plagues and stuff, you might just be like, gosh, like that's a little bit overboard. And, and yes, we understand this is not necessarily chronological. This is multiple aspects and layers of the same reality, but still, this is like pretty thoroughgoing destruction here.
Yeah.
But I think for me, as a in my personal walk of faith, this affirmation, just and true are your ways, O Lord. And I can affirm that I am not more compassionate than you are. I am not more righteous than you are. And if you, oh God, see it as appropriate to pour out your wrath on these things, then I want to affirm just and true are your ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for me. David says, one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 131, he says, I know it better in Hebrew. Sorry,
of course,
that's not
of course.
A random humble flex, but it's a beautiful little poem. He says, Lord, my eyes are not too high. My heart is not lifted up. I don't occupy myself with things too great and lofty for me. No, I'm like a babe weaned at his mother's breast, and I'm just that contented. I've cried myself out, and I'm contented, and I'm safe, and I'm not going to overthink the stuff that's above my pay grade. And I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of the reason that God elevates David, is because David doesn't elevate himself. And David says, of course there are things I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually not going to overly vex myself about that.
Yes.
I think that's a really important spiritual posture.
Totally. I think that's a good spot to wrap up and just stay in that mindset.
Yes.
Where, especially after reading some of these things that are very lofty, at least for me.
For anybody.
Yeah. And kind of ending on that attitude of humility.
Yeah.
And there are things that I might think, there are justices that I might want to see accomplished.
Right.
That God may not be doing, at least right now. And ending on okay, I may not know all things, but Lord, you do. And I can rest in the fact that you do.
Yep.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
We're gonna add to
You know
that.
what? Maybe I'll just, maybe to close, maybe I'll just read that psalm.
Okay.
So this is Psalm 131, a song of ascents of David. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul, like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is actually hope, is to say, I have confidence that although I don't understand everything, I know someone who does understand everything, and his heart is good. And he's got history in his hands in the direction of everything, great and small.
Mm-hmm.
My little life, course of nations, they're in his hands. And therefore, I'm going to hope in him.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that is, if you can keep your spirit in that ballpark,
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
I have one more thing to add.
Sure.
I was just talking to the worship team about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I do photography. I do newborn photography a lot.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm. And
I need to bring you over.
Yeah, right. But if you've interacted with a baby or a newborn, rocking to sleep is huge. It's daily, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And also like kind of singing to sleep. Sometimes you might not even have words, but it's just like this hum.
Mm-hmm.
And that encourages the baby to be reminded like, oh, I'm in the presence of something that I am comfortable in. I'm in the presence of, the baby's used to being in a womb, constantly surrounded, constantly cradled, constantly in physical contact. And so when the baby's out of the womb, it like craves that again. So being in a mother's or father's or any warm set of arms with a hum, with a song, is very comforting. And when they are without it, they long to be back there. And so was kind of talking with the worship team, like we had just ended a worship set upstairs and all of us were just kind of like still humming, still like, just like didn't want that to be over. And I was just reminded of that's what we were created for.
Yeah.
We were created for this, for this constant hum and song of being in God's presence.
Yeah.
And I love that even in chapter 15, we're kind of brought back to a song and God's presence, right? The temple.
Yeah.
And that's what we were created for. And so you mentioned a newborn crying and being consoled again. Like we may cry out like a newborn, like, this is not right, God.
Yeah.
This is not good. This doesn't feel right.
Right.
But I can trust you. So therefore, I'm going to put myself in your presence. I'm going to continue to worship. I'm going to acknowledge that I don't know everything. I'm going to acknowledge that I need to be humble because you, God, are holy. You, God, know everything. So I'm going to rest. I'm going to hum and be in your presence. And like David said, just, you got it, Lord. And I can trust that.
Is that a decision that you have to make? Or
Yeah,
do you...
I would think so. Well, it's both. I think it's what my very core desires, but it's like also I have to decide that I'm going to let go and trust that God is in control of all. I don't know. What do you think?
I think Psalm 131, often I have to preach to my own heart.
Yes.
Okay, listen up, heart.
Yeah.
You are not going to occupy yourself with things too lofty and too marvelous for you.
Yeah.
And you are, if you saw yourself correctly, you'd realize that you are such a little baby.
Yeah.
Not in a demeaning sense, but like in a fragile, dependent, circumscribed awareness sort of sense. You are an infant, so just rest in one who loves you and knows so much more than you.
Yeah. All right.
Well, let's put a pin in it there.
Okay.
Next time we have the light topic, the bowls of wrath.
That's very different than newborn talk.
It'll be great.
The bowls of wrath.
The bowls of wrath.
Bowls of wrath.
I'm pumped. So
Great. Have fun with that.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope this was helpful. We are the Deeper Bible Podcast, and as the ancient rabbis say, shalom, me homies. Take care.